This week on the Basketball Show, can anything save the NBA All-Star break and the NBL awards? Which ones were right and which ones were wrong?
And I reveal which NBL team was kissed on the ass by the Golden Fairy.
This is the Basketball Show with Shane the Hammer Heel. What they gonna say next?
Hello and welcome to the Basketball Show. I am Nathan Stremple. Jo Healy currently on a plane this morning, so she can't join us. So I'm grateful to be in the chair. Big thank you to our friends at Boost Mobile, Throwback Store and Code Sports for making it all possible. And a shout out to my main man, Shane the Hammer Heel.
How are you, mate? Welcome aboard again. You are the best sixth man in the business.
It's wonderful to jump in the hosting chair, and good timing to jump in too after I did manage to take care of Tom Hirsch in our Basketball Show Super Coach League on the weekend too. So I'm up and about.
I like that. Little self-stroking, mate, is always good too, to be able to start the show. Well done, mate. You did a good job. You were the expert. I learned a lot this year, so I will be ready to bounce back next year, bigger and better.
Well, mate, that's just starting to tip the ledges because I learned a lot from you. There is so much happening in the world of hoops. NBL's heading towards the finals. WNBL's starting to ramp up. Bit of a fever break as well. And NBA coming off the All-Star game hit the business season. So much to talk about. Shall we get into it? Jumping into the starting five, Hammer. We're fresh off the NBL Awards night, and off the bat, Dean Vickerman, now a three-time Coach of the Year winner.
Yeah, well, I mean, congrats to Dean. He's done a great job again. And I think what Dean's done is he's created a club that just does a good job every year. His recruiting is outstanding. He's been able to go and place people into the right spots, not necessarily superstars, but he's created the best team and got the results. But for me, Tatum was the Coach of the Year. He had to, because he didn't have any of that opportunity that Dean Vickerman had. He didn't get to select his team. There was no planning going on. He took a team that was in disarray and he got those guys playing hard for them. He's got the best out of almost every player on that team to become a really, really good opponent in the playoffs and give themselves some sort of chance. It's a really difficult thing to do, is change morale like he's done, and he's done it better than probably anyone we've ever seen within a season.
And moving on in the awards, the Next Gen Award went to a guy who's been in the league several years in Sam Froling. What are your thoughts on that, Hammer?
Well, Sam Froling's had an incredible year again, and he continues to grow as a player, the starting centre for a playoff team. And, I've said it, many times. I think this guy can go to the NBA and will get an opportunity at the NBA. But the award itself, I'm not big on. I think, the fact that Froles has been around for maybe 5 years or something like that, I think it needs to be a Rookie of the Year or one of the first 2 years in the league for, anyone around that comes from, whether they're a next star, whether they're Australian or whatever it is. I think it needs to go back and the award needs to be changed. Nothing against Big Sam, because he's had a great year.
Maybe it's a case of why not both Next Gen for that mid-age bracket and Rookie of the Year for an early player. One to look at. In terms of looking at it, the finals are coming up, so 6 teams are progressing. 4 teams have their season over, so we're talking Adelaide, Cairns, Southeast Melbourne and Brisbane. Of those teams that are missing out, are there any positives to take away?
Well, we've spoken really highly about the Brisbane Bullets and the job that Justin Schuler's done all season. I think they've laid the foundations to really springboard. They need to get their recruiting right. I think that's where they probably let themselves down this year with the American content, because had they got more contributions from those guys that complemented the good Australian talent they were able to put together, and particularly the role players that they were able to put in that team as well, I think they've got a great future, and they're a team that you could imagine will improve next year and go to the playoffs.
Yeah, I hear you. Chris Smith needed to hit more shots. The other 3, anything to take away there? Adelaide making a run late, possibly?
Well, I think Adelaide were fantastic, and the fact that they've had another underachieving season. When you look at the whole result, they haven't made the playoffs. But when you look at the job that Scott Ninnis did, it sounds like he's probably going to be the likely coach. This time as being the head coach and getting to know the players as far as recruiting, retaining, and then bringing in other guys who can get it done. That's got to be a positive for them. And I think they have to set a 3-year plan to be a finals team every year. That's where they need to be able to get back to. They need to get to be a powerhouse. I think with DJ signed there, I think it's a positive. And they've got some other pieces that I think can play valuable roles. So I think overall, considering they didn't make the playoffs, there's still some positives to take away.
Love your point on Ninnis, and again, like Tatum, hopefully a contract not far away from him. But I think on the flip side, the other two, Cairns and SE Melbourne, with those rosters, probably would have wanted more from this season.
Yeah, well, I mean, really interesting. Cairns, they sort of started on the wrong foot. They went to the States, came back, had a tough spell. Then they got into a little bit of momentum. But probably more concerning is just, the talk coming out of Cairns with their Americans and McCall not really playing much in the last few games and, everything not sort of going well for them. So, you would expect that you're going to see new imports back to the drawing board for them. What players can they retain? But they'll be overall really disappointed with the way they finished. And SE Melbourne, I mean, everyone talks about their injuries and they have had injury problems, but I still think they're going down the wrong track. They've been really disappointing for me. They've underachieved even when they did have their players in. They're doing an internal investigation or analysis of, where they're at and what changes need to be made, because they definitely need to make changes. It hasn't mattered who the coach is. I feel like they haven't lived up to the talent that they've got for whatever reason, and I'll be intrigued to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, a lot to watch in the off-season for those two. And looking over the WNBL, the team that stands out, Bendigo making a run at the time of recording. They've just come off smashing Townsville. A heck of a run towards the end of the season.
Looking at the ladder and seeing Bendigo come from well down in the ladder to now being in the top 3 is incredible. And but not surprising with some of the players they've got. I think they're well coached as well. And, I think they're probably as talented as any team going into this, and they play hard. They give themselves a chance. So, yeah, it'll be intriguing to see who ends up making that Final Four.
Plenty to watch at the business end of the WNBL season. And they're the big topics in hoops with the starting 5.
5. Here's this week's Hoops Highlights, brought to you by Boost Mobile.
That's good supposed to do that game.
He's not in the dunk contest, but he gonna windmill that thing. And
4.
Yeah, it's a lost ball on the handoff. Gaffer going to Hardaway, and it's numbers, and it's Blake Wesley violently hammering that home. Okay to do that, but the rules are you're supposed to call a technical foul when you do this. When you do this.
3. Jackson in on Shingoon, blocked by Shingoon, picked up the loose change, drives the length of the floor, and slams it down.
That's how you get yourself going.
2.
Cartwright for Cheatham. Bang! Cheatham getting it done in the lead up to this year's finals.
1.
Averaging just 4.5 points per game. Williams and the foul.
It's all predicated on the Grizzlies getting the ball out quickly. I mean, I'll take that back. That was Jordan Goodwin that threw the lob up there.
Zaire Williams gets up for this week's #1 play of the week thanks to Boost Mobile.
And now for Points Made, we welcome our man Derek Rucker. And D-Ruck, tell us, can anything save the All-Star weekend?
Whoa. Shane, we've been on this one for a few years. Actually, you've been on it for about 6 or 7 years. This thing is a disgrace. There was not one redeeming feature of that game, or the whole weekend for that matter, that made me want to tune in. This is the first time, Hammer, I've not seen a single second of All-Star Weekend. And that's even with the great Steph Curry playing a prominent role in it. I didn't even care to turn Steph on. The Sabrina thing, that didn't interest me whatsoever. The dunk contest, it's a wrap. And the game itself, I'll let you take over the game.
Well, I don't even know where to start, mate. You know, I lost interest. You said 6 or 7 years ago. It could be 10 years ago. I mean, it's just disgraceful. It's an embarrassment for the sport. I can't believe these guys, the way they play. The only solution is foreigners versus Americans. We've been saying it for years. It's the only thing that would create any sort of interest. But that's at a bit of a stretch as well. I just think
Yeah.
they have to scrap it. They have to start again. They have to think of something else. I don't know what it is, but it's a money-making vehicle for the league. So you know they're just not going to drop it, but you know they're looking for solutions because finally they're starting to realize it's not going to happen.
Maybe if you condense the time of the game, maybe 2 12s, maybe 3x3. I don't know what it is, but like stop. I can't handle it anymore. Watching Luca do that dunk, like that's bad for the brand. I'm sorry, that's bad for the brand. And just based on the clips that the NBA were sharing throughout the weekend, that was kind of indicative of how poor a spectacle it was. And you know what? Let's just scrap it for a couple of years, rethink it, and let's just give the players a few days off. And Hammer, not to mention, imagine how much money the gambling agencies are losing during this stretch. Like there's a significant financial cost during that time frame. So I'm sure if they work in cahoots, they can come up with something. But for now, let's have a hiatus from the All-Star game.
I'd like to see all those people in the All-Star game go one-on-one with one champion. Maybe that would sort of get those guys to play a little bit harder. I don't know. It's lost.
I like it. One-on-one, little king of the court knockout style. I think All-Star Weekend by now is just kind of a lead into the trades we're going to see as guys talk about what team they want to play in the following season. But the real stuff starts now, second half of the NBA season. Tell us, folks, who are your eyes on?
Hammer, I still like the Clippers, but I think the last time we talked about this, I didn't give Minnesota, the Timberwolves, enough love. They're a really good defensive team, and they've got a young star in Anthony Edwards who can take over a game and who's got the hunger and the mindset to not shy away from the occasion. Now, what worries me about the Timberwolves is where does Gobert fit in the finals? Where does he fit in the playoffs? Because for years now, we've seen teams play him effectively off the court where he's not a factor. And now the defensive reputation that you've established in the regular season is almost irrelevant. So I like them. I'm going to give a little bit of love to Denver just based on incumbency. I think it's too hard, though, Shane, to try and go back to back.
I think the fact that Murray has been out for extended times, we haven't seen the best of them. And I think the fact that they did win it, they've probably got a little bit more patience knowing they're going to come good at the right time. I think they're fourth in the West at the moment. I think they'll have a really good last period to be able to get some momentum. So I think they're a chance. I want to touch on Minnesota. Edwards is a superstar, but what I like about him is he's happy to be able to play with these other guys. He takes his turn, and then when it is his turn, he puts his foot down. I like the fact that if Gobert isn't playing well and they need to be able to put him to the bench, they can still bring Towns and make him the five-man and makes them a little bit more mobile as well. So I think that they've got options. That top four, I think, is established with Minnesota, OKC, the Clippers, and Denver. In the East, though, D, that's where it's probably a little bit more open, I reckon. Cleveland's the team. When I looked at the ladder, I'm like, what?
Really?
Cleveland's second. They can't stay second, so they're going to be the team that drops. I think Philly's going to drop as well. They're in fifth, and I think that leaves Boston, Milwaukee, New York, and I actually think Indiana's going to finish strong and give themselves some sort of momentum as well. Now they've embedded Siakam into that lineup.
Hey, speaking of things being open, didn't JJ Redick open up on Doc Rivers overnight? And that Milwaukee thing, it doesn't look great. Somehow, some way, they've just got to get better defensively. I don't know if they try and change the scheme. Look, we know the defensive talent isn't necessarily there, but I don't like how Milwaukee look at all. I mean, can they win a championship just trying to outscore people?
Yeah, well, we're going to see that, but they've got the talent. So if they put their minds to it, and you know one thing about some of those superstars, they will dig in to try and make some changes to win this challenge. So they can score, they're a chance, but they're not my favorite. I still think that Boston's the team to beat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of winning championships, it's finals time now for the NBL. Melbourne United, the clear number one, all through the season, didn't lose 2 games in a row, but now finishing first, they've got 3 weeks off before they play.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't like this at all, Shane. I was actually speaking to Bryce Cotton about this same thing yesterday morning. And remember when we'd have the Christmas games, Hammer, and you'd have like 3 or 4 days off and you enjoy the festivities and you got back on the court like on the 26th or the 27th and the ball felt like a triangle. For us skills guys, it really hurt us more than it hurt the big guys. And so Bryce and I were talking about this very fact, how he intends to stay sharp. And he said, look, he's got this knee contusion, but basically for him, it's a lot of skills work. It's a lot of maintaining mobility in his body. You don't want to stiffen up because your body, it doesn't know actually what's going on. It could think it's the end of the season. You know, you've got to keep some type of routine and regimen in place that's challenging your body and keeping you sharp while at the same time not overtaxing it and exposing it to risk.
I mean, this is a problem, D. It's a significant problem that the two top teams won't play for almost 3 weeks. But I don't know what the solution is. The fact that this FIBA window, they've got to have time off. You know, probably the only thing that could help is if the NBL and Basketball Australia work together and that the only players that are chosen are players that aren't in the playoffs. But then that hurts some of the guys that want to put their best foot forward to try and get a Boomers jersey, you know, moving forward to the Olympics. But, you know, the chances of somebody from the Australian League making it to that team come the Olympics is remote. You know, like, God love them, but with so many NBA guys that we've got, they're going to fill most of these spots. So there aren't that many available. And if their performances in the NBL don't stand up for that selection, then I say it's a better resolution than it is having 3 weeks off, because that should not happen.
Well, I mean, if you look at the teams that aren't healthy right now, that's New Zealand and that's Perth. Okay. New Zealand has just been crushed by injuries, and Perth, well, I'm saying they're hurt because their man is hurt at the moment. So that's all that matters, because they can't win without him being at least 95%, Shane. But that really helps Sydney. So Sydney now have a good opportunity to win this first play-in game next Wednesday night. New Zealand won't have Will McDowell-White most likely. Finn Delaney's had a back complaint. They lost Anthony Lamb, as we know. They're severely undermanned. There's a chance for the Kings to build some momentum on the back of that 55-point calamity that we saw from Southeast Melbourne. They can get something going here, Hammer, and try and make a run. Do you think that's possible?
Well, I mean, they've got the talent. We know that I've said they're the most talented team in the league. Now, they haven't blended for whatever reason, but they've been kissed on the arse by the Golden Fairy. I mean, they had to win the last game of the round, and they played against a team with no imports. So they get through and they build their confidence, and now they play against New Zealand without two starters and, you know, probably the second best player in the league in Anthony Lamb from my perspective, and somebody with McDowell-White that was really gaining some momentum as well and playing some good basketball. So I think the Kings get through that, and then they're going to play, obviously, the loser of Tasmania and Illawarra, which is going to be a tough game, and they're going to need to get that. And just while we're on that, can people stop saying that them and New Zealand are in the finals or in the playoffs? They're not in the playoffs. They're in a play-in. A play-in in its own name suggests that they have to win to get into the playoffs. There is no playoffs yet.
Fair enough.
There are 2 games coming up. You talk about the Golden Fairy, Tasmania, Illawarra. What are your thoughts there, Derek?
Wow. I really like the way both of these teams play. I love their coaches. They're like really macho teams, Hammer, that play a throwback style of basketball. Illawarra play well on the road. Anytime the teams are so tight, I usually go first with the tiebreaker. Who has the best player on the court? I think the best player on the court is Gary Clark. But then my second tiebreaker is the home team, and that goes to Tasmania. So, man, this has got to be within 5 either way type game, Shane.
It's a flip of the coin. And, when you talk about these teams being even, they're both my second favorite favorite teams. I
Yep.
love the way they play. I love everything about the way they're going. You know what gives Illawarra a chance to actually create an upset on the road is they have had that many games that have replicated finals in the lead up to the finals, because they've had so many must-win games where they've gone on the road or they've had to go to the Kings. Even that Christmas Day win against the Kings,
Yeah.
big games, they've had to be able to come up. So I feel like they're a little bit finals hardened. But I think with the way Tasmania play, they almost play a playoff style anyway, because even though they play with pace when they want to, their decision making is great. They're never rushed. They'll get easy points in transition when they need to, but when they need to be patient, they're prepared to work the ball and get it to their best players. They're the most disciplined team in the competition. So I agree. I think it's going to be a flip of the coin. If I had to choose, I'll go for Tassie, but with no confidence. This one could go to overtime.
And as we talk finals, we put a lid on the regular season with the NBL awards night. Everyone looking their best. Hammer, what did you think about the attire rolling around?
Well, I didn't actually get to see the awards night, but I did see some stuff on social media. And a question for you, D, is it an American thing or whatever? Was it bright in there? But there was a lot of sunglasses going on. I saw it on social media, and I just don't get it. Can you explain to me? Did you wear sunglasses?
I did wear sunglasses as I was
Oh,
walking to the event, but I took them off once I was inside, Shane. But yeah,
okay.
it was kind of bright in there, but it wasn't bright enough that you needed sunglasses. It's a look, it's a style. Hell, when I lived in
It's
LA,
a,
you hung out with me. I wear my sunglasses inside the shopping center. That's just the way you got to get down sometimes. Don't be, you got to get outside your comfort zone for personal growth, Hammer.
was it like no one bumped into each other or anything like that? It was like, because it was very American, wasn't it? Was there any Aussies wearing sunnies? Please tell me. I'm going to blackball them straight away.
Yeah, there were. I mean,
Who?
if
Name
I
them.
could remember anything that happened on the night, Shane, I could give you a bit more details.
Okay, well, when you go back, I want you to think about it and let me know what Aussies wore sunglasses. All right, because we're going to put a name through a bit of a line through their name moving forward.
I think Samson Froling would not be afraid of wearing sunglasses inside. I think he could be a candidate.
Okay, well, you come back to us, mate.
Sam Froling, a top knot and sunglasses. Elite life advice there on Points Made from Derek Rucker. That's sometimes the way you got to get down. You got to get outside your comfort zone for personal growth. Derek Rucker, appreciate you, mate. That's all we've got time for this week on the Basketball Show. Shout out to our friends at Code Sports, Boost Mobile, and the Throwback Store. Big name heading towards the Throwback Store next week, Hammer.
Mikey Lazarus, he just keeps getting it done at the Throwback Store. Scottie Pippen. It's going to be a great event they've got next Wednesday, so look out for that. And not only Scottie, get in there just to see the store, because they've got unbelievable amounts of NBA stuff and shoes and all the rest of it. A lot of fun.
It's a ripping spot, the original home of the Basketball Show. Scottie Pippen, they had Horace Grant last week, so that's all happening there. And it was all happening here today. Thank you, Hammer. Thank you, Derek Rucker on Points Made, and we will see you next week on the Basketball Show.
This is a co-production by News Corp Australia and Closer Sports.